In the rolling hills of colonial Virginia in the year 1820, there lived a young woman named Emma Thompson. She was 19 years old with kind blue eyes and beautiful auburn hair that shone like copperin. The morning sunlight Emma lived with her father William in a small wooden house next to their trading post, right at the edge of the wilderness where few settlers dared to go. Emma was not like the other settler girls in her community. While most of them stayed close to home and feared the native people who lived in the forests, Emma felt something different in her heart. She was curious about these people and their ways of life. Often, she would sit by her bedroom window and watch as groups of Cherokee people passed peacefully through the valley below. She wondered about their stories, their dreams, and what their lives were like in the deep woods. Her father William was a kind man who ran the trading post with honesty and fairness. He traded with anyone who came to his door, including the Cherokee, people who sometimes brought beautiful furs and handmade pottery to exchange for tools and supplies. William had taught Emma to treat all people with respect, no matter where they came from or what they looked like. In the same valley, but deep in the forest, lived a Cherokee man named James Whitehawk. He was 25 years old with gentle brown eyes that seemed to hold both great wisdom and deep sadness. James was different from many of the other Cherokee men because he spoke perfect English. He had learned the language from Christian missionaries who had come to teach his people many years before. James was known among his people as a bridge builder. This meant that he always looked for ways to make peace instead of starting fights. When there were problems between the Cherokee and the white settlers, James would try to find solutions that would help everyone get along. His people respected him greatly for this gift of making peace. James often traveled to different settlements to trade furs and beautiful pottery made by the women in his village. He believed that when people traded with each other and got to know each other, they were less likely to fight. This was his way of building bridges between the two very different worlds. One beautiful autumn morning, when the leaves on the trees were turning gold and red, Emma decided to walk to the stream. To gather herbs for cooking, she carried a small wicker basket and hummed softly to herself as she walked through the peaceful forest. The morning air was crisp and fresh, and she felt happy to be outside in nature. As Emma walked along the bank of the stream, looking for the special herbs her father liked in his tea. She stepped on some wet rocks near the water's edge. The rocks were slippery from the morning dew, and suddenly Emma's foot slipped. She fell hard to the ground and felt a sharp pain shoot through her ankle. Emma tried to stand up, but the pain was too great. Her ankle was twisted badly, and she could not put any weight on it. She sat on the ground beside the stream, tears streaming down her face, not knowing how she would get home. The trading post was more than a mile away, and no one knew where she had gone. Just when Emma was beginning to feel truly frightened, she heard the soft sound of footsteps approaching through the forest. She looked up and saw a tall Cherokee man walking toward her. He carried a leather pouch over his shoulder and moved quietly through the trees like a gentle shadow. The man was James Whitehawk, though Emma did not know his name yet. When he saw the young settler woman sitting on the ground with tears on her face, he immediately understood that she was hurt and needed help. James approached slowly, not wanting to frighten Emma. He knelt down beside her and spoke in clear, soft English. "Please, do not be afraid," he said with genuine kindness in his voice. "I only wish to help you." Emma looked into his gentle brown eyes and felt something surprising happen in her heart. Instead of fear, she felt only gratitude and relief. There was something about this Cherokee man that made her feel safe and understood. "Thank you," Emma whispered as James carefully looked at her injured ankle. His hands were gentle as he examined the swelling, and his touch was as careful as her own father's would have been. James opened his leather pouch and took out several different medicinal plants that he had gathered. From the forest, he knew exactly how to use willow bark and cool stream water to make a healing wrap for Emma's twisted ankle. As he worked, they began to talk quietly together. Emma learned that James had studied with missionaries and spoke English as well as she did. She discovered that he dreamed of a world where Cherokee people and white settlers could live together in peace and understanding. James learned that Emma was different from other settler girls because she had always felt curious about Cherokee ways of life instead of being afraid. When James finished wrapping Emma's ankle, the pain was much less. He helped her stand up carefully and offered to help her walk back toward her home. They walked slowly together through the forest, talking softly about their hopes and dreams. When they reached the edge of the settlement, James stopped. He knew it would not be safe for either of them if people saw them together. "Will I see you again?" Emma asked, surprising herself with her boldness. James smiled sadly and said, "Our worlds are not meant to meet, Emma Thompson. But perhaps, if you ever need help, leave a white cloth by the old oak tree near the stream." That night, Emma lay in her bed thinking about the Cherokee man who had shown her such unexpected kindness. She had never met anyone who made her feel so completely understood and accepted for who she truly was. Over the next several weeks after their first meeting, Emma found herself walking to the stream much more often than she ever had before. She would carry one of her favorite books and sit beneath the old oak tree where James had told her to leave a white cloth if she ever needed help. She would read quietly, but her eyes would often look up from the pages, secretly hoping to catch a glimpse of the kind Cherokee man who had helped her. Emma told herself that she was just enjoying the peaceful sounds of the flowing water and the beautiful colors of the autumn leaves. But deep in her heart, she knew the real reason she kept returning to this special place. She was hoping to see James again. One crisp morning, as Emma sat reading beneath the oak tree, something caught her eye. Hanging from a low branch was a small wooden bird, carved with incredible skill and care. The tiny bird looked so real that Emma almost expected it to fly away. She reached up and gently touched the smooth wood, and her heart began to flutter with joy. She knew that James had left this beautiful gift for her. Emma looked round the forest, wondering if James was watching her from somewhere among the trees. She felt both excited and nervous as she carefully took the wooden bird from the branch and held it in her hands. The carving was so detailed and perfect that she could see every tiny feather. The next day, Emma returned to the oak tree with a small offering of her own. She had spent the evening baking fresh bread, and she wrapped several warm rolls in a clean white cloth. She also picked a small bouquet of the last wild flowers of the season. Emma placed these gifts at the base of the oak tree and sat down to wait, though she was not sure what she was waiting for. When Emma returned 2 days later, her gifts were gone, and in their place was something that took her breath away. A beautiful bookmark made of tiny colored beads was hanging from the same branch where the wooden bird had been. The beads were arranged in a pattern that looked like a flowing river, and they sparkled in the sunlight like jewels. This began a wonderful exchange of gifts between Emma and James. Emma would leave small drawings that she made of the birds and animals she saw in the forest. She was quite good at drawing, and she put great care into each picture. Sometimes she would leave wild flowers or sweet cakes that she had baked in her father's kitchen. Jam. East would respond with amazing handmade items that showed his great skill as a craftsman. He left a smooth river stone that he had painted with gentle designs of leaves and flowers. Another time, Emma found a small wooden box filled with the most delicious honey she had ever tasted. The honey was golden and sweet, and it tasted like sunshine, and wildflowers. Each gift made Emma feel more connected to this Cherokee man she barely knew. She began to understand that James was not just kind, but also very talented and thoughtful. She could see the time and care he put into making each beautiful item. Their friendship grew through these silent exchanges for many weeks. Emma felt like she had a wonderful secret that filled her days with excitement and joy. She had never had a friendship like this before, and she treasured every small gift and every moment of connection. Then one day, something amazing happened. Emma was sitting beneath the oak tree, reading a book of poetry, when she heard soft footsteps approaching. She looked up and saw James stepping out from behind the trees. Her heart began to beat very fast, and she felt both nervous and happy at the same time. James walked toward her slowly, with a gentle smile on his face. "I hope I do not frighten you," he said in his soft, clear English, "but I have looked forward to our meeting for many days." Emma's face lit up with the brightest smile, and she felt all her nervousness disappear. "I have hoped for the same thing," she said honestly. Would you like to sit and talk with me?" James nodded and sat down on the soft grass beside Emma, being careful to sit at a respectful distance, and so began their secret friendship that would change both of their lives forever. Every few days after that, Emma and James would meet by the stream beneath their special oak tree. They would talk for hours about everything and anything. James taught Emma many wonderful things about Cherokee traditions and beliefs. He explained how his people respected every living thing in the forest, from the smallest insect to the largest. He told her how the Cherokee believed that the earth was their mother, who provided everything they needed to live. Emma was fascinated to learn that the Cherokee people solved their conflicts through talking and understanding rather than through fighting and violence. This was very different from what she had been taught about native people. Emma shared her love of books and learning with James. She told him about her dreams of someday traveling to faraway places and seeing the world beyond the Virginia hills. She also shared her sadness that so many people seemed to hate others just because they looked different or lived differently. "My father is a good man," Emma explained to James one sunny afternoon as they sat by the stream, "but he has been taught to fear your people. He believes the old stories about savage warriors, not knowing that gentle souls like you exist." James nodded thoughtfully, understanding the pain in Emma's voice. "And my people have been hurt so many times by white settlers who take our land and break their promises," he replied sadly. "They do not know of kind hearts like yours, Emma." As the beautiful autumn days turned into the cold of winter, their friendship deepened into something even more precious and special. They began to care for each other in ways that both thrilled and frightened them both. By the time spring arrived with its warm sunshine and blooming flowers, something beautiful and powerful had grown between Emma and James. What had started as a simple friendship had blossomed into the deepest love that either of them had ever known. They met whenever it was possible, always careful to keep their meetings secret from both of their communities during their precious time together. Emma and James shared their deepest dreams and their greatest fears. They talked about what they hoped their futures would hold and what worried them most about the world around them. James began teaching Emma words in the Cherokee language, especially words for beautiful things that filled their hearts with joy. "Gulf Quody," James would say softly, pointing to his heart and then to Emma. This word meant love in Cherokee, and Emma thought it was the most beautiful sound she had ever heard. "Holly," he taught her, which meant peaceful, and Emma loved how the word felt gentle on her tongue. Emma shared her favorite English poems and songs with James. She would recite verses from books she had loved since childhood, and James would listen with wonder at the musical way the English words could flow together. Sometimes Emma would sing soft melodies that her mother had taught her before she died, and James would close his eyes and let the sweet sounds wash over him as the weeks passed. Emma and James discovered something magical about their love. They realized that love needed no translation from one language to another. Love spoke clearly in every kind gesture they shared, in every gentle touch of their hands, and in every moment they looked into each other's eyes. When James braided wildflowers into Emma's hair, she understood his love perfectly. When Emma brought him food she had cooked herself, he felt her care in every bite. But even as their love grew stronger and more beautiful each day, dark clouds were gathering round them. The happiness they found in each other's arms was shadowed by growing tension and fear in both of their communities. More and more white settlers were arriving in Virginia every month. These new families pushed further and further into the lands that had belonged to the Cherokee people for hundreds of years. The newcomers cut down ancient trees, built fences across hunting trails, and claimed ownership of places that the Cherokee considered sacred. Emma could see the anger and worry growing in her father's eyes. William Thompson began speaking, more often about what he called Indian troubles. He would pace round their small home in the evenings, talking about reports of conflicts between settlers and native people in other parts of the territory. Why, Emma's heart would break a little more each time she heard her father speak with such fear and anger about people like James Dodd at the same time. James was facing his own difficult pressures from his community. Many of the Cherokee warriors were growing tired of watching their lands being taken away piece by piece. They wanted to fight back against the settlers who seemed to take whatever they wanted without asking permission. These warriors could not understand why James always spoke of peace and compromise when their very way of life was being threatened. James felt torn between his loyalty to his people and his desire to find peaceful solutions. He knew that violence would only bring more violence, but he also understood the anger and frustration of his fellow Cherokee. Every day, the pressure on him grew stronger to give up his dreams of peace and join the calls for war. One evening in late spring, James arrived at their usual meeting place by the old oak tree looking more troubled than Emma had ever seen him. His face was filled with sadness, and his shoulders seemed to carry a heavy weight. Emma ran to him immediately, knowing that something terrible had happened. "James, my heart," she said, using the tender words they had shared with each other. "What is wrong?" James took Emma's hands in his and looked deeply into her blue eyes. "Emma, my heart," he said, his voice heavy with sorrow. "The chiefs are planning to move our people further west. The white government is forcing us from our ancestral lands." Emma felt as if someone had struck her in the chest. The breath left her lungs, and her eyes immediately filled with tears when she whispered, barely able to speak the word, "Before the next full moon." James replied, his own voice breaking with emotion, "In 2 weeks, I will be gone forever." Emma and James held each other tightly, both of them knowing that their beautiful love story was racing toward an ending that seemed impossible to bear. They stood together under the darkening sky, feeling the weight of forces much larger than themselves pulling them apart. That night, as the stars came out above them, Emma and James made promises to love each other always, no matter how many miles might separate them. They swore that distance could never change what lived in their hearts. "I will find a way to come with you," Emma declared with all the bravery she could find in her breaking heart. But James shook his head gently, though it pained him to disagree with her. "My beloved Emma, you would be giving up your entire world, your family, your future, and my people. They would not understand our love any more than yours would." The next morning, Emma made a decision that would change everything. She walked into her father's trading post with determination in her step and said, "Father, I need to tell you about someone very important to me." William Thompson looked up from his account books, immediately noticing the serious expression on his daughter's face. "What is it, Emma?" "I have fallen in love, father, with a Cherokee man named James Whitehawk. He is the kindest, most honorable person I have ever known." The color drained completely from her father's face. The conversation that followed was filled with tears, anger, and heartbreak that would change their family forever. William Thompson walked back and forth across his small office behind the trading post, his boots making heavy sounds on the wooden floor. He ran his hands through his graying hair, struggling to understand the words his daughter had just spoken. To him, the idea that Emma had fallen in love with a Cherokee man seemed impossible to believe. "Emma, you don't know what you're saying," William said, his voice filled with worry and confusion. "These people are not like us. They have different ways, different beliefs. You cannot possibly understand what this means." Emma stood in the doorway of her father's office, her back straight and her chin raised with quiet strength. She had expected this reaction from her father, but she was prepared to fight for her love. "Yes, father, they do have different ways," Emma replied calmly. "James has taught me that different doesn't mean wrong. His people love their families, honor their elders, and care for their community just as we do. They just do it in their own beautiful way." William stopped pacing and stared at his daughter. He had never heard Emma speak with such confidence and wisdom before. Something in her voice made him pause and really listen to what she was saying. Over the next several days, Emma and her father had many long, tearful conversations. Emma shared story after story about James's wisdom, kindness, and strong character. She told her father how James had found her by the stream with her injured ankle and had cared for her like she was his own sister. She explained how James always spoke of peace instead of war, even when other Cherokee warriors wanted to fight. Emma described how James had taught her to see the world through eyes of understanding rather than fear. She told her father about the beautiful gifts James had made with his own hands, and how he had patiently taught her Cherokee words for love and peace. Most importantly, Emma helped her father understand that James had made her a better person, not a foolish one. William Thompson was a practical man who liked to solve problems with logic and common sense. But he was also a father who loved his daughter more than anything else in the world. As he listened to Emma's stories about James, William began to see something important. Emma's love had not made her foolish or blind to reality. Instead, it had made her wise beyond her 19 years. "I cannot pretend to understand this completely," William told Emma finally, after days of difficult conversations, "but I can see that this man has brought out the best in you. If you truly love him with all your heart, then I must find a way to meet him properly." Emma's eyes filled with tears of gratitude and relief. She had hoped that her father would eventually understand, but she had been afraid that he might forbid her from ever seeing James again. Now, she felt a spark of hope that maybe, somehow, everything would work out. The meeting between William Thompson and James Whitehawk was arranged to take place at sunset by the old oak tree where Emma and James had shared so many precious moments. Together, Emma waited nervously as she watched James approach through the trees. He walked with dignity and respect, carrying no weapons of any kind, his hands open in a gesture of peace. James stopped a respectful distance away from William Thompson and spoke in his clear, educated English. "Mr. Thompson," James said with sincere respect, "I know this meeting is difficult for you. I love your daughter with all my heart, and I would never do anything to hurt her or bring dishonor to your family." William studied the Young Cherokee manned carefully. He looked for signs of the savage warrior that he had been taught to fear, but instead he saw intelligence shining in James's gentle brown eyes. He saw respect in the way James held himself, and he saw genuine, deep love when James looked at Emma. William was just beginning to speak when they all heard the sound of a horse galloping toward them at great speed. A rider came racing through the trees, his horse covered in sweat and his face filled with panic. The man brought terrible news that changed everything in an instant. "The Cherokee are being forced to leave immediately," the rider shouted breathlessly. "Government soldiers are coming to escort them west within days, not weeks. Everyone must be ready to go right away." James and Emma looked at each other with hearts that felt like they were breaking into 1,000 pieces. They had thought they had 2 weeks left together, but now their time was ending even sooner than they had feared. That night, Emma and James met one last time under their special oak tree. The stars shone down on them like tiny diamonds in the dark sky, and they held each other close, knowing it would be their final embrace. Together, they made the most difficult decision of their young lives. They would not ask the other person to give up their entire world, their family, and their future, but they promised that they would carry their love forever in their hearts. "No matter how far apart they might be, I will love you always, Emma," James whispered softly, placing a small silver locket in her trembling hands. The locket was smooth and beautiful, and inside was a tiny piece of turquoise stone. "And I will love you beyond forever, James," Emma replied through her tears, giving him a white handkerchief that she had embroidered with their initials intertwined in golden thread. They kissed once under the starlight, sealing their promise of eternal love, knowing they would never see each other again. As the first light of dawn painted the Virginia hills with soft golden colors, James White Hawk walked away from the small settlement where Emma lived. Each step he took felt like a knife cutting through his heart, but he knew this was the only way to keep Emma safe and honor both of their families. Emma stood at her bedroom window, watching through her tears as the man she loved disappeared beyond the horizon. She pressed her hand against the glass and whispered a final goodbye, knowing she would never see James again, but feeling grateful in her heart for the beautiful love they had shared. The Cherokee people began their long, sorrowful journey westward. On a path that would later be remembered as the Trail of Tears, hundreds of men, women, and children walked together, carrying only what they could hold in their hands. Many were sick, and many were afraid, but they supported each other with the strength that had kept their people together for generations. James walked beside the tribal elders, using his strength to help comfort crying children and support those who stumbled along the difficult path. His gentle words and kind actions brought hope to people who had lost almost everything they had ever known. In his pocket, he carefully carried the white handkerchief that Emma had embroidered with their initials, and in his heart, he carried her love like a warm flame that would never go out. Back in Virginia, Emma felt as if a part of her soul had been torn away, but she was determined not to let her grief destroy her. Instead, she decided to channel all of her sadness into compassion for others who were suffering. Emma began teaching reading and writing to the settler children in her community, sharing her love of books and learning with young minds who were hungry for knowledge. But Emma also did something that surprised many people in her town. She quietly helped any Cherokee people who passed through the area, offering them food, medicine, and kindness. She did this in memory of James and as a way to honor the love they had shared. Some people in the settlement criticized Emma for helping Native people, but she never stopped doing what she believed was right. Years passed slowly, and Emma never married. Many good men asked for her hand, but she always politely declined their offers instead. She lived a life full of purpose and love for others. Emma became known throughout the region as a woman who could heal both bodies and hearts, who always had time for the lonely and lost, and who never turned away anyone who needed help. When Emma turned 30, she used her father's savings to open a small school in the center of town. This school was different from others because Emma taught children of all backgrounds about kindness, understanding, and seeing the good in all people. She welcomed white children and native children equally, teaching them to read and write together. In the same classroom, Emma would often tell her students stories about how love could build bridges between any two hearts, no matter how different they seemed on the outside. She taught them that people of all colors and cultures had the same hopes, dreams, and feelings. Her students learned to see past differences and find the common humanity that connected all people. Meanwhile, far away in the Western Territories, James had become a respected leader among his relocated people. The journey west had been filled with hardship and loss. But the Cherokee had survived and were working to build new lives in their new homeland. James worked day and night to help his people adapt to their new surroundings while keeping their beautiful traditions and culture alive. James never married, though many Cherokee women would have been honored to become his wife. Instead, he poured his loving heart into caring for orphan children who had lost their parents during the difficult journey west. He also worked tirelessly to build peaceful relationships with neighboring communities, always remembering Emma's belief that understanding was possible between different peoples. 25 years after that terrible day, when they had said goodbye, something amazing happened. A young Cherokee man arrived at Emma's school, now a woman of 44 with silver threads in her auburn hair. The young man carried a worn leather pouch and spoke with great respect. "Miss Thompson," he said politely, "my grandfather James White Hawk asked me to bring you this before he passed into the spirit world last month." Emma's hands trembled as she opened the leather pouch. Inside was the silver locket she had given to James so many years ago, carefully preserved and polished until it shone like new. There was also a letter written in James's familiar handwriting, though the paper was yellow with age. Emma read the letter through her tears. "My dearest Emma, though we could not share a life together, our love has touched countless lives. You taught me that the heart recognizes no boundaries, and I have spent every day since trying to build the bridges of understanding we dreamed of together. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for showing me that even impossible love can make the world more beautiful." Emma wept tears of both sadness and joy, understanding finally that their love story had never really ended. Instead, it had grown into something larger and more beautiful than either of them could have imagined when they were young. Many years later, long after Emma had also passed away, the people of the town built a new school in honor of both Emma and James. They called it the Thompson White Hawk Center for Understanding, where children of all backgrounds learned together about love, respect, and the beautiful truth that all people are more alike than different. The love between Emma and James had created a legacy that would last forever, proving that true love never dies but transforms into something that heals the world.